with internet. And then here should be the, okay, I think we're good. Okay, we're on. Sorry about that, little technical adjustments to begin with. It's Leslie Denny here today to join you from Yoga Oceanside Annex. We're going to call this the Annex office over here. It's my studio, my home studio, joining you for stretch and release class this morning. So I hope you're doing great, and thank you for carving out some time to be with us today. Today, I had a couple of things to share with you. I always have some things to share with you. And I was plucking through my library at home here in my office, and I stumbled upon a book that I had picked up on one of those Barnes & Noble tables for $5 a piece, one of those things. And it was Wayne Dyer's 10 Secrets of Success and Inner Peace, this little book. I'll show it to you right there really close so you can see it right there. And it has been off and on a go-to for myself. I just really like reading a lot of his thoughts. I followed his teachings for so many years, and I feel really grateful that we still have some of his, so many of his books and teachings left for us to review. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. Warning, it's this guy, the cat again. He said, have an open mind, have a mind that is open to everything. And that really inspired me to go back to our yoga teachings of when we speak of a parigraha. A parigraha is non-attachment, and it's probably one of the hardest things that I try to practice on a regular basis, because it just doesn't get easy to me. I typically in my mind and my heart have a lot of outcomes that I want to see. I have a lot of desires that I'd like to have. And when things don't come about the way I would hope that they would, I tend to get disappointed. And yet when I move myself into that state of a parigraha, that non-attachment, and I free myself up to say, whatever the world offers is what the world will offer, and I will always be able to see the blessings that reside within it, then all of a sudden I'm lifted up, and I realize that I have a lot more gratitude. I have a lot less disappointment. I have a lot more acceptance, and because of that, things that would stress me otherwise tend to just go away. So I really love that particular teaching of having a mind open to anything and attached to nothing. And today, what we're going to be doing in our class is we're going to be exploring feet and hips. We may travel a little bit in between the two spaces, but we're primarily going to be working on feet and hips today. I love working on feet. Feet is, when I work with a private client, what I will usually say, if they say, Leslie, what's just one thing? If I should do anything, what would I do? And I say, go to the feet. The feet are wonderful because they're like a gateway that will loosen up tension throughout your whole body. Our practice is self-massage. So we're actually rehydrating or increasing the blood circulation into the connective tissue throughout your body. And the supplies that we're going to be using today, our props, is I've got a block that I'm using. If you saw one of our prior episodes of our classes, you can use a really big, thick book if you'd rather. That's absolutely okay. The other thing that we're going to be using is I'm actually using 2 of the alpha balls, the yoga tune-up balls. And if you only have one, fear not, it will still work. So don't stress yourself out if you say, my gosh, Leslie, I only have 1 ball. And then the other thing that we're going to be using is the classic size tune-up balls. And these are in the mesh tote, and we're going to keep them in the mesh tote for the time being. Also, we'll be reminding ourselves that this is like the thumb of a massage therapist, and the alpha ball is like the palm of their hand. The other thing that I have with me today is a strap. Make it easy if you just have a belt or something around home, and that will get us started. So what I'd love for you to do is join me on your mat, and let's kind of find a comfortable seated posture. And you might want to kind of rock your body from side to side a little bit and just take a few deep breaths. And just imagine if you could put yourself into that mind space, and I know you can, of not having any expectations, outcomes, attachments to anything. Just what if, just for today, in this moment, you could live in the space that you're in and embrace everything that you have right here and now, without any thought of what might happen, what might unfold. And that's just a beautiful thought, because then we can begin to focus our gratitude on the real abundance that we have right now. And as you breathe, just check in with your breath. A deep inhale, slow exhale. Finding a rhythm that feels comfortable for you. I'll pause there for a few moments while you move into your breath. And in that mind space, begin to repeat an intention. You can even say it out loud, repeating words that are meaningful to you. Or sankalpa is what we call it. It begins with the words I am, and it offers up a descriptive word where you want to be, and just by saying it, it begins to open that doorway to create that intention into reality. And then beginning this time with the sacred sound of Om, let's draw the hands at heart center and take a deep inhale. Om. Wonderful. And as you're setting up your space, while I peel off my socks here, play music that you like to listen to. I like to keep it quiet here in the studio so that you can listen to whatever it is that you want to listen to that's inspiring to you. And that might be folk music, it may be instrumental meditation music, maybe it's a heavy metal day for you. So whatever feels good, you go ahead and fire that up. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to recline to the mat, and we're going to do a few little mild bridge lifts just to get our circulation going. So as I roll it down to the mat, I'm pressing my feet into the mat. Feet are just about hip width apart. And on the inhale, I'm lifting, and on the exhale, lowering. We want to have this engagement of this bridge flow where on the inhale, when you lift, your abdominals are completely relaxed. But on the exhale, when you lower, try to engage those core muscles a little bit as you push the hips down. And that's going to really help get your blood circulation going. And that just assists in the body in building awareness when we start to get rolling here. And as I'm putting my headspace in line, what I'm thinking about is absolutely nothing in the future. I'm thinking about the simple fact that you and I are here together to enjoy this time. And that's all that matters to me. Because if I can have that right now, then I've got everything that I need. And just do that maybe 2 more times. Nice lift, exhale to lower. If anything feels uncomfortable or you can't take a deep breath, then feel free to dial back, because we'll be doing lots of stuff today, and I'm sure we'll find something that really resonates with you. Let's go ahead and draw the knees to the chest and rock side to side. So the biggest discussion in our house is, should the cat be a part of this program or not? The cat has a tendency to get really boring, Merlin, and sometimes he can be really annoying. So we've kind of played around with locking him up, but then he gets even more annoying and makes a lot of noise. So hopefully he will be Mr. Mellow today. And go ahead and roll it over to one side and push yourself up. That's always the safest way to come up, especially if you have any kind of lower back issues. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take our large ball and we're going to give ourselves a quick roll behind the calf. This is such a great thing to do to open up your calf muscles. You'll notice that my foot is flexed. I'm pointing through the heel of my feet, and I'm rolling the ball at the widest part of the calf. Sometimes we let that ball slip down too low. I want you to get to that real meaty part of your calf, and then just relax yourself as much as you can as you're rolling. We talk a lot in the class about the gastrocnemius. That's the calf muscle that we're working. And it goes up, it's a very big muscle, and it kind of butterflies out. There's 2 large sides on either side. And so since it's such a prominent muscle, you want to try to roll nice and wide from side to side. You don't have to tilt the toe necessarily from one side to the other, but just give it a nice roll. The Achilles tendon goes up pretty high at the attachment point there. We usually think about it as just being behind the ankle here, but it actually goes up very high. So when we start to move the leg from side to side and immediately begin to increase that circulation into that calf muscle, what that does is it kind of fluffs up the connective tissue within it, and it also helps take lesser strain on the Achilles tendon. So we can't really stretch that tendon, but we can allow for that connective tissue and the muscles and ligaments around it to not put so much pressure that it's tenser than it should be. Once you bring that ball back to center, go ahead and pop the other leg on top and begin to keep rolling from side to side. Now, if this is too much for you, if you start to feel like, ooh, you know, I don't know if I can take a deep breath, or you're starting to clench up your shoulders to your earlobes, then you want to try to slow it down a little bit. Maybe just hold it in place. And just do that little roll from side to side a couple of more times. And then as you bring it to center, on the leg that's the lower leg on top of the ball, point and flex the foot. That usually, if you didn't get a little tense before, sometimes if your calf is really tight, this will bring that up to the surface. So just move in the direction that you can to open things up. And we're doing this to get ready to do the feet. I have found that sometimes when I do this in preparation for doing the feet, it actually takes a lot of tension off of the feet. But you don't necessarily have to do that, because you can work at a lighter load if you need to. And now we're going to point the toe, and this is not for the faint of heart, so that's a warning. Go ahead and roll the leg from right to left with that toe pointed. And if you're gritting your teeth and just going, then kind of bring it back to center again, or relax that foot. So I'm going to go for a little bit more roll from side to side, as it feels good. And what I have also found is it doesn't matter how much exercise or how little you've done. If you have tight calves, you have tight calves. And even sometimes being in sedentary positions, we need to do a lot of calf work to try to keep those puppies relaxed. Good. And then release from there, and we'll switch it to the other side. So you're going to flex the foot and just roll from side to side. Good job. I hope you got a nice day so far. I'm not, remember with non-attachment, I'm not thinking about what the rest of the day holds. I'm just kind of hanging right here with you guys. And then bring it back to center and then stack the other leg on top and roll from side to side. And just keep working it from side to side, a little bit at a time. That feels good. It feels pretty good to me. I've been doing this a lot throughout this last week because my calves get really tight. And then bring it to center and now point and flex that foot below. Just point it and flex it. How's that feel? I hope it feels good. Uh-oh. Cat appears. And then point the toe and roll from side to side. And just go in the range of intensity that feels right to you. Remember, with this, we always talk about how we don't want to get to a range where you're clenching, you're tightening up through your jawline. You can't take a deep breath because that can be very contraindicated to what you're trying to achieve, which is trying to loosen up that connective tissue. Good. And then release from there. Okay, pop your legs out a little bit. And then we're going to take out, for now, one of the small balls. I was going to work with a bigger ball, but I think let's try the small ball and see how that goes. And you're going to have to stand up. Got to stand up. When you stand up on the mat, what we're going to do is actually vigorously roll the ball underneath one foot. It doesn't matter which one you're working with. And you want to really vigorously roll. Recently, what I said in one of my classes was, when I do this, I think about a dog, had dogs, and when you scratch some certain part of their belly, they start going like this. Yeah, I've got the Jimmy leg. So you want to get that little Jimmy leg. So if that helps, go ahead and scratch and see if you can hit that spot. And just keep rolling nice and vigorously. You're warming up the bottom of that foot. So if this is already sensitive to you, watch your compression points today. Make sure you're not going too deep, because I want you to feel good by the time this is all over. And I know that if we do this together, you will. So I'm going to turn to the side a little bit here so you can see this little side view. And now I'm going to bring the ball just below my toes to that little bridge along my base of the toes. The heel is down, and then I'm going to try to grab the ball with my toes as much as possible. That is very difficult for me to do because I have very short toes. I blame my mother. And when you press the heel down, you're going to try to step that other foot forward and stretch out through that calf. What I want you to think about is, if you're like, whoa, and you feel like you're losing your balance, step the foot back a little bit and just keep stretching through the back of your leg. Just point of gentle resistance. That's all we're looking for here. So try not to make this so much that you want to keep drawing out of it or keep saying in your mind, I wish she'd tell us to stop. You don't want to be there. You want to be able to really get into the meat of this stretch and just take some deep breaths. So let's take 3 really deep breaths right now. Good, and just take one more super deep breath, slow exhale out. And then stepping that front foot back, now is the tender spot. Roll it to the instep, the middle of your foot, and just press as much weight as you can on it. You don't want to go like, the harder the better, because it's not. You want to feel gentle point of resistance again. You can take some deep breaths. It will probably feel a little uncomfortable, so just try to go at the range that feels best to you. Good. Now I'm going to step back again so you can see something. I am now rocking my foot from side to side. And all that's doing is it's kind of moving into a little bit more lateral territory on the foot. And I'm watching my knee. I'm not trying to plant it so much that my knee has to take the load. The whole leg is working here. So just roll from side to side. And then our next movement is to roll the ball in the front of the heel and press your toes down, and then just take the weight that you can upon it. I'll bring that other foot forward so you can see it. And then just gradual load putting into that ball. And again, you want to keep your balance. Sometimes I like to tell people that if you feel like, you know, I struggle with my balance sometimes and I feel like I'm going to fall over, go to the wall. You can hang on to the wall. We do that all the time. And then just take one more deep inhale and exhale the air out. Really send it out. Good. And then step back and go back to that little fast roll. Does it feel kind of itchy? Mine sometimes feels kind of itchy. That's really, you can feel that circulation starting to build up in there. And then once you finish there, you're going to stand on your feet and behold the miracle. Reach your arms up, and one arm feels longer than the other. It's really not, but it just feels that way because you open it up. Remember what I said about it being kind of a gateway? That's why it feels that way. So let's switch it off to the other side. And first give ourselves that vigorous roll, roll, roll. I always think of the song Row, Row, Row Your Boat when I say that. Is that going to be in your mind for the rest of the day? I bet. Or each time that you come to the ball. And just keep vigorously rolling. And then go ahead and bring it to the base of your toes, heel down, and step that other foot forward and stretch. And just keep working into the depth of that stretch on the back of your leg. Take a few deep breaths here. Good. 2 more deep breaths. You might breathe a little slower, faster. Just breathe however it feels comfortable, a little less than passive. Good. And then step that front foot back and then roll the ball to the mid-step. You could use the larger ball for this, for sure. So, and sometimes there's an advantage to doing large versus small, but I usually tell people what feels better to you. Just try them different from one to the other. And then you're just gently moving the leg and rocking the foot across the ball like so. Just a nice little even roll from side to side. Feels good to me, really does. My feet always pick up a lot of tension, probably because I'm on them all the time. Good. And then roll that ball to the front of the heel and stand on it. Just give it as much load as you can. And I'll turn around, face forward. I'm keeping my hips pretty even, so I'm lifting up the opposite foot. We're going to do something with the block for a deep hip stretch in just a moment after we work into the hips. A little longer than a moment. But it's going to be a really nice stretch, but tricky. So make sure you have your big book or block. And then go ahead and roll vigorously, nice and vigorously, right across it. Good. When I'm seated at my desk, because I'm at my computer a lot, and I like to roll my feet a lot when I'm sitting at my desk. It just feels so good, and it helps release a lot of tension to my hips. So release from there, and for those that were worried, reach your arms up, they're all even, but notice how your feet feel. Go ahead, take it for a walk. Kind of walk around a little bit, check it out. They feel like they're a little bit more anchored, grounded to the earth. Better? Yes? All right, let's come on down to the seated posture on your mat, and let's get into these things we call hips. What we're going to do is we're going to come to the back body, and this is when you can either use one ball or two. If you have 2 of the large balls, go ahead and use them. If you don't, I'll give you a heads up when to switch it from one side to the other, because we're going to be on the hips for a little bit of time. Now roll down to the mat. Remember, keep your block for your head or your book if you need to. And then you're going to place either one big ball on each side or just one ball square in the center of your buttock. And you got two buttocks. Yeah, you got one buttock one side, one buttock left. So as you press in from here, you're just gonna start circling the hips around, right? And you're probably in your own little space right now going, oh, that feels so good. And just keep rolling in a circular fashion right around there. And take some deep breaths. Always take some deep breaths. And don't forget hydration. If you're thirsty, grab some water, for gosh sake. Stay hydrated through your class, because that water really helps flush out your system, especially when you're working on this particular rolling motion. And then you're going to bring it right to the center and keep rolling. Now, if you only have one ball, just go ahead and move that ball to the other hip and keep rolling. For those that have two balls, you're just going to keep circling the hips around. Nice deep breaths. And one thing that I like to do sometimes is that if I feel like I'm taking up too much tension in my shoulders to keep rolling on those big balls, I'll hold the edge of my mat. And when I hold the edge of my mat, that takes a lot of load out of my shoulders. I don't have to work as hard. I can concentrate the energy where I need it. And just a few more breaths in that circling motion. And then from there, we're going to release one ball. So let's work on just one side, your choice, and anchor it in and pick up the foot. So the ball's on my right buttock, and I'm lifting up my leg, keeping the knee bent. And from here, I'm going to circle that knee around and keeping the knee bent. And you don't necessarily have to extend the leg out. You can just keep it bent. And what I like about doing it that way is that it relaxes my hip flexors on the front of the hips so that they don't seem like they're working quite as hard. When I start to extend that leg out, then I'm really starting to work a little harder. And I don't feel like working really hard today, do you? And then I'm going to circle that knee in the opposite direction and just kind of work it around. Now, what I want you to think about is, again, when I said work at the range of intensity that's best for you, keep those words in your mind. Don't let yourself fall away from that intention, we'll call it, because we're going to drop the foot down and now roll that ball out to the outer edge of the hip. Yikes. Once you get to that outer glute muscle where it's starting to attach to the IT band, you may be saying a lot of things at me right now, and that's okay. You go ahead and shout them out. You're going to drop that knee down, and then you're going to roll up and down on the mat. And again, hold on to the edge of your mat if you need to. You're kind of working to that attachment point that's on the outer hip as we're starting to get into the IT band. And we're going to go a little deeper today. So if you feel like you're getting way too deep, just bring it back to this point or where we began on that one side. Because remember, we're just working one buttock right now. But we're going to go to the outer hip, and we're going to kind of work into where we have the, remember the IT band reaches up to the top and comes into the outer hip alongside the outside of the pelvis and down into the outer thigh. So now here's where we go. You're going to roll all the way over to your side. And I'm going to lift up a little bit here. I've got the ball right on the outside of my hip. Now, where am I? Watch. I can feel the top of my hip here. Here's the inception point where my thigh meets the hip socket. I am right in the center space between those. I hope that gives you a good point of reference. So when I lie on my side, how do I feel? I feel annoyed with myself because I know I need this, and it's a little uncomfortable. But you know what? I can take a deep breath and I can roll on it. And I'm circling right now. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just circling my hips around. And again, if this feels real uncomfortable, try straight compression. There's no hard, fast rule that says you have to be moving on the balls all the time. Sometimes Pinning it and holding it is all you need. Good. Now we're going to be jumping that greater trochanter. That's where that thigh meets into this hip socket area. We're going to jump over that bony part and go right into the IT band and follow it all the way down. So you ready? Leap, bring it down, take it to the top of the leg, and work along that IT band. So now I'm pushing the hips forward and back. If you have a lot of tension on your shoulder, you can lie it down. This is kind of tricky, but you can lie it down and work from there. The large ball is uncomfortable. It's very prominent. Or if you need to, get yourself a bolster to park underneath, or a stack of pillows or blankets to rest your arm on. So now let's move it down a little farther. There is going to be this point where you can drop your hip down and sit on the hip while you're working across the IT band. So I wanted to point out that we are working along the IT band. So as the IT band runs vertically this way, we're cutting across it. That helps open that tissue up a little bit more to get the connective tissue within. And that's why it's so beneficial. With a foam roller, you'll still get a lot of benefit, but typically you're never going to go across the IT band. You'll just go with the grain, the IT band. So bring it down a little lower. And here's where I can drop my hip to the side and then compress at the rate of intensity that I want. I think I heard somebody screaming. Is it painful? I know, I'm working really hard right now. I'm starting to pop a sweat. So that is that blood circulation starting to really get fired up. So if you're getting warm, there it is. And then bring it down a little bit lower and just keep rolling right across it. We're almost there, I promise. But remember, we're going to be doing the other side. I know you can do this. And then bring it down a little bit lower. Roll across that IT band. And then we're coming into a real favorite move here. You're going to compress the ball just above the knee joint on the outside, lateral side of your leg, just the outside. And press and then straighten the leg and then bend it. And just straighten and bend. The IT band is instrumental in creating tension throughout many areas of our body, but especially the hips and the knees. So when we work the IT band, and remember, like the Achilles, it's a tendon, so you're not going to be stretching it like you would a ligament in a minor fashion or a muscle, but we can alleviate its tension by working the connective tissue. That's what we're working on today. And then release from there. Test time. Go ahead and roll it back. First of all, you're going to notice that you feel like you have a flat tire on that buttock. It just goes plop and falls down into the ground. Hip feels like it's lower than the other one. As you reach the arms over, that arm on that side of the buttock that you just worked feels like it's longer because you just loosened up everything. If I had you stand up, which you might want to do right now, you'd feel even less tension in the soles of your feet. So good job. And let's work it to the other side. So remember, as I switch it around, we're going to pop the one ball to the buttock and just give it a little bit of a massage, not too much there, because we're rolling it out to the side, and I'm bringing it right out to the side where that buttock area starts to meet that IT band, or you're on the outer side of your hip. Then you're going to drop the knee open and massage up and down on this part. This is a hard part. So again, hold on to your mat if you need to. Give yourself a little bit of support. And notice what's happening to your jaw. Are you clenching your teeth? Try to relax your jaw as much as you can. I do that all the time. Yeah, you don't want to be like in those old Westerns when they were getting ready to do some major surgery on somebody without any kind of anesthetic, and they'd give them like a rope and say, bite that. You don't want to be like that. You want to be in a place where you can actually feel that you're doing the good work for yourself. And here we go. We're going to roll up and over, pressing right into that and either just resting or pushing the hips forward and back. Just kind of work at the range of intensity that you need. This is a tough one. When we work hips, holy Toledo, this is a tough venture. So just do the best that you can. And remember that if you're working with the balls at home, every little bit that you can do for yourself is going to make a big difference, because your body's going to remember that little bits at a time. So consistency, like with so many things, really makes the difference. And now we're going to jump over that hip, prominent hip bony area, right into the upper leg. And this is where I've got to kind of keep myself upright a little bit. Or you could use the bolsters, blankets. Oh gosh, thanks, Merlin. That's awfully nice. Yeah, I like you too. And just keep rolling across that area. And then move it down a little farther. Yeah. Another alternative is if you feel a lot of pressure, you can take that top foot. If you feel like you're wobbling all over the place because of the pressure, you can bring that top foot forward or back to give yourself a little bit more support. Higher range of intensity is stacking the legs. Probably should have told you that the first time we did it. And then bring it down a little bit lower, and you're going to get to that point where you can rest the hip down, and then you'll feel a lot more in control at that point. I don't know about you, but my garden right now, it's the beginning of April, tomorrow. My garden is exploding with beauty, and flowers are just blooming like I can't believe it. And for the first time in my life, I got my orchids to bloom this year. And it's just been so stunning. And next time I'll bring one out and show it to you. And then bring it down a little lower, rest the hips down if you can, and start rolling right across that ball. I know you're working hard. I know you're working hard. So just stay with me here, because we're really not almost done. I was going to lie and tell you we're almost done to lift you up a little bit, but I may as well be honest today. We got a little bit more work to do. So just keep pushing across, bring that leg a little bit lower, roll across that IT band, check in with your breath, take some deep breaths and see how you're feeling. Checking in is so important. Good, and bring it down a little bit lower. Keep rolling. And we're going to come to that little spot above the knee. I do this, and we're going to do it on the inside of your knees as well. I really like doing this particular movement. As you bring it just above the knee, compress, lengthen the leg, and bend. I have a lot of knee problems. I've got a lot of damage to my knees from a lot of athletic things that I did throughout my life. And the balls have really rescued me from pain. They really have. That's my story. Maybe you have a story that you can share about how they're affecting you. Or maybe this is your first time that you've used them, in which case you're probably going, what the heck? This is amazing. And then go ahead and release from there. Stretch it out onto your mat. Reach the arms overhead. Check in. Notice things feel a lot better. And what you may also notice is that your low back is starting to lose tension. So how about that? So the next thing that we're going to do is, I promised we were going to do something on the insides of the knees. We're going to work the adductors as well as the knee right up at this little inception point. So you're going to want your large block or book, whichever you decided to use. And we're still sticking with that big ball, gosh. And as you roll on your side, this is the one that kind of gets mixed up for me. The top leg, I'm lying on my side, and I'm going to take that top leg, flip it over on top of the block and the ball, and roll from there. So I'm rolling the inside of my thigh. This is a tricky part to get to, and this is probably the only method that I have ever found that works really effectively. So you want to get into that sweet spot of that muscle on the inner thigh, which means you're probably rolling somewhere about the middle between your knee and the upper inner thigh there. And just roll across it. And I know that that is probably a little tender for you. So options are to just keep it as light as you can, because rest your weight on that opposite forearm. And again, if you need a bolster or a blanket to stretch out to, you can do it this way too. So you have a lot of options with this one. And checking in with your breath as well as your intention. So today when we started, we talked about Wayne Dyer and the fact of one of his guidelines for inner peace is to have no expectations of outcomes at all. And when we do that, you really get the most out of your life as it's happening right now. That's what I love about that thought. And then go ahead and bring that ball and block down just above the inside of your knee, and then compress, straighten the leg out, and then bend the knee. I don't know about you, but do you ever feel like sometimes life, like you just had like maybe a half an hour's worth of time that went by, and when you look back at it, you feel like you weren't even an active participant, and yet you were there, you were doing things? And yet when I can remember so many spots, up and down, spots in my day, then I really feel like this gift of life that I've been given, I'm applying it well, because I'm participating in the life that I've been given, and that goes so far. Then straighten the leg out, and then you're going to roll right there. If the rolling is like, then just dial back a little bit. Take it a little easier, because I know that this can be a real tense spot for us. Good. And then just hold it right there and relax that leg, that foot, as much as you can. Take a couple of deep breaths with me. Good. And then release from there. If you want to stretch it out, more magic. You'll feel that that side is even looser than before. You're going to feel like you're about 11 feet tall as we're going through this practice, because that's what it feels like for your body. So let's switch it to the other side. Rolling to the other side, ball on top of the block, leg on top of the ball. And then I'm going to roll mid-thigh forward and back. And just kind of really work it right here. And taking it nice and easy. So you'll feel those muscles within there. A lot more stuff in there than just the muscle, but you will feel kind of that little road bump that you're rolling over, just kind of like a bump, bump. And just take it really easy. Yeah, I have found that also when I go at a slower pace, I recognize a lot more. I really do. When I'm, jamming away at it, trying to get the job done, I miss so much that's happening. It's kind of like life, right? When we're working so fast through life that we're not even connecting, paying attention, it's like we miss it. And then go ahead and roll the assembly down just to the inside of that knee, straighten the leg, and bend. How's it feeling? Kind of just go ahead, have a conversation with yourself and talk to yourself. Say, Leslie, I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm starting to feel like things are so much looser. It feels good to me. Or you might be saying, boy, I wish Leslie would go away because this is feeling really uncomfortable. And then straighten that leg and roll, and then try to relax the leg and drop that foot down as much as you can, and just take about 3 deep breaths with me. Check in with your jawline. Maybe say a little Om inside your mind and your heart. And then release from there. Get a little water if you need it, because I bet it would feel good to have a little water. Now we're going to go, we've been spending a lot of time with the alpha balls, And what we're going to do is we're going to go into your quads, and these affect your hips too. Everything's connected. So when we go into the quads, this is a little trickier, and you can do this standing up against the wall if you like. You could stand against the wall, and I'll show you what that looks like. Pretend I have a big wall here, and then place the balls on either side, and then just compress, roll it down a little, compress, roll it down, compress. It's a little too hard for you to kind of kick it up and down. So if you're on the mat, you're going to straddle that primary quad muscle that's on top right here. You can feel that little popping motion. And you're going to lie on your belly. And from here, I'm going to roll up and down. I'm going to bring myself down a little bit, but I'm going to roll up and down. So I am rolling the quad. And as you roll, I want you to go from the top of that quad and kind of pull yourself up the mat so the ball assembly goes down a little bit lower. And keep doing that a little bit at a time until you all of a sudden get down just to the top of the knee. And make sure you have some space, because sometimes we run out of space on our mats, right? I had one gal in a class one time doing this, and she was headed for the door, and I felt like I needed to go back there and open the door so she could keep rolling outside. But you just want to kind of roll a little bit of space at a time, and then pull yourself up the mat, roll again, and get yourself all the way until you're just above the knee. So take a few breaths and do that. And I'm going to get in line with where you're going to be. Good. And don't feel like you need to rush. You don't need to rush at all. You can take your time while you're doing this. And then once you get to the top of the knee, I want you to just extend and bend, extend and bend. Get in there a little bit more. Extend and bend. That's great. And then release. If you need a child's pose because you've been doing this, stretch it back, take a couple of breaths. I know for me that feels really good. And I can also feel that there's so much tension being relieved from that knee joint. So just reach out, stretch, and then you're going to move to the opposite side. So I'm going to start even lower this time. And I'm joining you. Top of the thigh to you. And then roll up and down. Just a little bit here. And you can either pull yourself up, or you can just lift up and move the ball down a little lower. I could have told you that too. The effect when we're moving along the length of the muscle, in other words, we're rolling with the grain of the muscle, is called stripping. So you're actually helping affect a lot of that connective tissue on the surface and helping that muscle almost breathe a little better. And then roll it down a little farther and keep working it there. I know this probably feels pretty intense. Quads are all that. Good. And then go ahead and bring it just above your knee and compress, then bend and straighten. And just bend and straighten. I'll pop that other foot down so you can see that. Bend and straighten, bend and straighten. One more time here. Good. Do it more if you need it. And then when you're ready, release and push yourself back into that child's pose and just stretch it out. And then lift up to the hands and knees, and then work the spine in your cat-cow flow. Good. Now, let's go ahead and come to a standing posture and grab your blocker book. Good. This one is not recommended for people that have had hip replacements. So if you've had a hip replacement, please don't do this one. Just avoid it because we're not going to be here for long. You're going to place one foot on the block, lift up, and as you start to drop that opposite heel, just kick the hip out to the point that you feel that stretch in the hip. you'll notice that my heel on the opposite foot is not all the way down. And I've got a little bit of an attitude stretch. We call this an attitude stretch because when we have some attitude, this is what it looks like. So just stretch into that hip and take a couple more breaths. Remember, if you're bypassing this one, don't worry. We're going to be right with you in a minute for some stretches with the strap. And then release from there and switch it to the other side. So as I step up here and I start to lower that opposite heel, kicking the hip out until I feel a good stretch right there. And just take a breath or two. Relax through the shoulders. Just try to ease into that moment. Good. And then release from there. Come on down to your mat. Grab that strap, for gosh sakes. Good. Now, we're going to do one of my faves. And what I'm going to do is a couple of things. Keep a large ball block, and you're going to cross one ankle over the opposite leg. If you don't have this range of movement, then just go ahead and pop it to the inside of your thigh and rest it down, because you will more than likely go ahead and feel it where we're headed. If you're comfortable here, then start to lean forward with a lengthened spine. I'm going to turn it to the side in just a moment. You might need to use your strap to hold on to your foot. Now, when you lean into it, if you feel it at the back of the thigh, pop that alpha ball behind the knee, because where we want to feel it is on the outer hip of the leg that's crossed over. So when I turn to the side and show you from there, have my foot resting on my block, using my strap. I have a lengthened spine that I'm leaning forward with, and I am not rounding the shoulders because that can affect your low spine. I'm keeping that long, lengthened spine, almost like a flat back. And as I lean into it, I'm feeling it right in that outer hip right there. Can you feel it? Just work to the range that feels best to you. And take a couple more deep breaths. I think it's worked out so well today. How's it for you? I really enjoyed this session. I like hips and feet. I think they're super. Good. And then release from there and switch it to the other side. Don't fool yourself into thinking that both sides are the same. We are bilateral beings, but that doesn't mean that both sides are the same. So for me, I can't stretch nearly as far on this side. I'm still okay. And remember that tip for your hamstrings. If you're feeling it, place that big ball behind the knee and just keep that long, flat back and stretch. Good. Be in this moment. Even if it's uncomfortable for you, don't miss it. Life is not perfect. And all too often, those things that are uncomfortable for us increase our joy when that discomfort departs. So just remember, you're in a good space, and we're doing this together. Excellent. And release from there. Now I want you to roll down to your mat. If you need to use the block to the back of your head, you're welcome to. And as you do, keep your straps or just hold on to your foot. If you're comfortable straightening that leg out, go for it. I always like to use a strap. I always say that props are a sign of wisdom, not weakness. They make me feel stronger to have a little bit of support. And then once I get here, I'm going to start just rotating the leg around, small range of motion, because we're getting ready for Shavasana. And just keep stretching and then change the direction. Yeah, I can say that things are a lot looser than when we started. And then swap it off. to the other leg. And just give yourself that little rotation so that you feel the stretch in the back of the thigh. And then circle it in the opposite direction. Easy circling motions. Good. And then as you release from there, draw your knees to the chest. Give yourself a little rock from side to side. And then move into your favorite posture for relaxation, for Shavasana. And if you like to do legs up wall, or if you would rather just recline on the mat, or maybe you need a bolster for the backs of your knees, or maybe you'd like to move into some other restorative pose that's your favorite, go ahead and get into that now. And then once you get into that posture, maybe with an eye pillow over your eyes, turning the music down if you played something to accompany your practice today. Take a deep inhale and then just relax yourself into the mat. I'm going to play the singing bowls to start and then guide you through your Shavasana, and you just let go. Close your eyes and keep letting go. Let me be the keeper of your time for the next few moments, and when it's time to come back, I'll come for you. Take a deep breath. And gently roll yourself over to one side. And then slowly push yourself back to an upright seated posture. Good. Take a cleansing breath, a deep inhale through the nose and an exhale through the mouth. and embrace this very moment as we draw our hands to heart center in Anjali Mudra. There is a beauty in life with being able to live in the moment. And we've been gifted with this wonderful life, and you don't want to miss a moment of it, good or bad, high or low. So embrace the life you've been given. Let's close this time with the sacred sound of Om. Take a deep inhale. Lokaha, Samistaha, Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy, free, and at peace. Namaste. Have a great day, and thanks for coming today. I will see you next time.